All right, hopefully now we're actually recording. This is time number 3 of trying to record this. The first one, of course, was abysmal. The second one was much better than the first recording. Of course, I never pushed record, and so we'll try number 3. Anyway, hello everyone. My name is Rod. This video is about building a Wear OS app. Specifically, this video will be on building just a simple Hello World Wear OS app, mainly as a validation to get everything working and get familiar with the interface. Our end goal for our use case is going to be to build a calorie tracker. And so why build a calorie tracker? Of course, you can build whatever you want. But it so happens that I would like to build a new calorie tracker. This is the current calorie tracker that I use and one that I built. It's called Too Tight. I built this on the Flutter platform using Dart, and we'll take a look at it in just a second just to make sure we understand sort of the why I built this and then why I want to build the Wear OS app. And as I learn Android and Wear OS and Kotlin, I'm decided that I would make some videos on it. There's not a lot of content on Wear OS development, unlike Flutter has hundreds, if not thousands, of videos and documents out there, blog posts and whatnot that help you. I'm not finding a lot on the Wear OS, so I thought I would start to become a contributor as opposed to only a consumer, and I'm a huge consumer of YouTube and videos for learning to do stuff. So this is the app I wrote a couple of years ago. I really decided I wanted to lose some weight, and being a geeky guy, I wanted to use an app to track it, and went out there and started looking at what apps were there. And they're all CRUD applications: create, read, update, and delete. All in the list view, same old. Most of them were had this big foods database, which I wanted nothing to do with. Most of the foods, especially when you're really concentrating on dieting and trying to lose weight, are going to be pretty minimal list of foods you're eating anyway. It's mainly about holding yourself accountable. And so I decided to build my own application. I looked around, decided that Flutter was the new up and coming, and it looked fun to learn, so I did. Instead of a list view showing the foods, I basically created a word cloud, and the word cloud is interesting in that the colors and the orientation all change each time this page refreshes, and then the size of the text is based upon the amount of calories, which you really can't see too well in this screen, but you can see in this next screen where this is the scrambled eggs, 300 calories, my lunch taco, which is 250. So you can kind of see that. Up here you'll see the goal calories that I have for the day, and then where I'm sitting. Essentially, if you want to add a new item here, of course this just takes you to a simple dialog box that you can use to add in new foods. And it does have like a live search, so that when you're typing in the words SA, it's going to pull up salad for 100 calories automatically, since it knows that you already entered that into your own basically tracking database, which isn't really a database at all. It's just leveraging shared preferences in Flutter, basically JSON-ish key value pairs. And I've got hundreds of things stored in that shared preferences with no issues whatsoever. So much easier than any sort of cloud database or anything. Of course, it's not connected. It's all just local to the app, but that's all I needed, so that's all I went through and built. Of course, here you can see it's got the calorie goals, what you had in the last 7 days, the last 30 days, and then lifetime averages, and then binge calories down here. So then gave you that ability that if you were you played nice for several days in a row and you had some extra calories, then you could eat that bowl of ice cream or whatever, that have that extra beer, whatever it was that does it for you. And then here you can of course track your weight. You have the weight that you wanted to get to, what you were currently at, how much you'd lost so far, and how much you have to lose. These are all just kind of tools that helped me to be accountable, to say, my goal was to get to under 200, and it was to do it for my 50th birthday. You can see here, essentially me weighing in at 263 when I was 49, and getting down to that weight loss, which I did do thanks to really this app, and thanks to not eating like crap, and thanks to actually exercising and trying to do something so that when I'm 60 and 70 that I'm not an old fat man sitting in a recliner. Want to be retired and hiking. So anyway, enough blundering around about this. Let's talk a little bit more. Really, this was kind of a preface as to why the app is going to be good. And the app's going to be pretty simple to start with. Essentially, it's going to know the calorie goals, so 2,000, and then it's going to have essentially, that arc, that ring that tracks around on the watches to track the number of calories that you have eaten. As it expands out, I want to be able to grab onto the calories burned from the sensor. Not sure how feasible that will be yet, but I won't let the fact that I don't know how to do it stop me. And I wonder if it's involved in the whole Fitbit API though. So at any rate, we'll figure that out as we go along. And let's get started here. First, we're going to open Android Studio. As I said, I'm new to Android Studio. Used it years and years ago, but that was years and years ago. So we come make sure that if you're developing on a Wear OS or a phone for that matter, you're going to need an emulator, especially on the watch. I've had limited success actually getting my watch to connect via Wi-Fi to Android. I have done it, but it seems to be about a 20% success ratio. So create device here. If you haven't done this before, I'm sure most of you have. I chose the large round here because that sort of matches the Pixel watch, which is what I have, and just only recently acquired. I was looking at buying a hiking watch, one of those Garmin's. They were like $1,000 or $500 for the watch that would show maps and stuff. And so when I started looking at alternatives, I found this watch and was like, oh, just like the Calorie stuff, I'll just build my own app. I'll learn about GPX files and I'll figure out how to build a route. Whether I actually do that or not is a whole nother story. I'm a hobbyist developer here. I pay my bills with SQL and data quality in big data world. Maybe we'll talk about data quality and how to build a real-time data quality environment on billions and billions of rows, maybe sometime in the future, depending on how much fun this whole YouTube thing actually is or is not. So anyway, we'll cancel out of there because I already have an emulator set up. We're going to go ahead and create a new project, go down to Wear OS. We'll start with a blank activity. We're just going to make sure that things are working the way they're supposed to. One, working that I can actually get something to record. Two, that I can actually figure out how to frickin' edit it. And three, and get it uploaded to YouTube. The code here is just going to be a little bit of an afterthought. And then we'll stick with just the Hello World application. And then once we get that going, we're going to convert it into a tile. I'm interested in YouTube, not YouTube. YouTube, hello. I'm interested in the tiles mostly right now. I think it's pretty neat how you can just swipe on the watch face and go right to that interface. Mainly, I see the steps, and then I've built part of a tile so far that's going to show calories, and it's just basically just the labels at this point, but it sort of shows the way I want this app to work. And I think when I click on the emulator, it's going to pop up a little bit, so we'll be able to see it just briefly, and then we can talk about it before we end the video and try to get all of this uploaded. So this whole part takes forever, so I'll edit it out, and didn't take forever this time. Interesting. All right, so here is what you're going to see when you first get the template that comes in for Hello World. We're going to see the activity main XML file, which is essentially previewing what you're going to see on the watch. It's not the way it works with tiles. You have to go through a couple more hoops in order to preview what the tiles are going to look like. We'll talk about the tiles a little bit more in the next video and how they are similar and different to essentially what an application is running as we think of like an executable. And then of course you have your activity main here, which has really got absolutely nothing in it for this Hello World. Essentially what we're going to do here is just sort of edit what we see. So we'll make a couple of changes here. I'm not sure why they defaulted to that being in the top left. We can do just a little bit better than that, I would hope. And so we're going to change just a couple of things here to make this a little bit better. And we'll come down to here and we'll grab just a couple of more that I happen to copy and paste so that we can not watch me blunder around typing. So come here, we've got this, made the text just a little bit bigger, centered it down here using the gravity element, maybe they call it, I'm not sure. And then we've got your string hello world here. So this is pointing back to a resource here or in the values. And so we can navigate over to there and see the strings XML round. Here's the hello world round. Usually, if I wasn't putting this on YouTube, I would type something more profane, but since it is on YouTube, I will be a nice person and I'll say something overly sweet, which I am not. Love is love. Should give people a good chuckle if they know me. And okay, well that was interesting. I had inadvertently, I'm using OBS for screen recording after watching some other guy's video on what the top free applications were, and one of the things he talked about was creating a hotkey to start and stop recordings, and dumbass here did Control S to start and stop recordings. It seemed logical at the time, except for when I was doing this and I hit Control S to save it, it stopped the recording. And then I continued on to blabber on for another 5 minutes or so, only to stop and say, where the hell is my recording and why does it say it's not recording? So I will not hit Control S and I will change that hotkey when I'm done. But now I think where we last left off, I had typed in love is love, a nice sweet little saying there for a sweet little man like me. And we can come back to the activity main XML and you can see that it's automatically there. So I think the final step that we need to go through is that we want to actually run this, make sure that it works. And you can add so much more to this hello world. We're going to start to extend it, obviously, as we've talked about, into a tile and, basically gut this and change it significantly. Tiles work quite a bit different than, the regular application does, at least for what I understand at the moment. But we'll run this and we'll see what happens. So it should run just fine. Should pop up the emulator in just a minute and show us that love is indeed love. Amazing when you're waiting for something that it just never comes up. The other thing we can talk about just briefly while we wait for this to run forever is the little donut down there. So the little donut is a little SVG icon that I built in Inkscape. Didn't know Inkscape either until this week. I had tried to, so remember this picture here, we'll talk about it in just a second. This is the tile that I'm working on. But here's the Love is Love application, so that all worked just fine. You saw the little donut there, and that is essentially a button. And so I wanted to build my own button image. And originally I had planned, we'll stop this just real quick. So maybe it stays up there. So originally I had planned on using my too tight icon that you saw on the Google webpage. If I can bring that up real quick here. So originally I planned on using this. So I found, a video of how to take a PNG file and convert it to a SVG file, and then from there to import it into Android and to turn it into the XML resource, if that's what it's appropriately called. And when I did that, Android had a complete conniption and when I looked at this XML file, it was like, I don't know, 20 pages long of XML code. It was just absolutely pathetic. When you think about it, I just built this in Paint. And so, I used the spray can, thing in Paint and built this little icon that I ended up using for this application. And I like the chunkiness of it and how, amateur it looks, because it is. But it did not convert over well. So then I did more research and found out that what I really needed to do was build an SVG or a vector resource. I had no idea how to do that, never done that before, but I found some YouTube videos again, and there was a tutorial there about how to build this donut, and I thought that looked great for a calorie tracker. So I built that, and then after quite a few trials of getting it into Android and getting it sized correctly, I managed to get it over here, and so I thought it would be cool to put down on top of my little avatar down there at the bottom. But so we can sort of just talk briefly about the tile app that we're going to have. Is essentially we'll have calories here where it says steps. This will be the amount of calories that you've eaten. This bar here can go around and actually show how close you are to that. It's not really needed, it's sort of gold plating, but we'll do it anyway because it's kind of cool. Probably not make it purple. I'm not a huge fan of purple, maybe green or something. But and then instead of here, I might move this up to the top, and there's something, I think, like a micro button or something that I was reading about to do the reset. Since in the beginning this isn't going to have persistent storage, we need some way to reset it so that we're going to put a plus and a minus down here at some level, buttons, in order to go up and down. We'll probably just go up and down in increments of 25 to start with. So we're not looking at tracking, or at least I'm personally not looking at caring whether I ate 1,759 calories versus 1,775 calories or 50 calories. So plenty accurate for me. This is more, like I said, an accountability exercise that, I've decided that I'm not going to eat more than 2,000 calories a day, and that's how I'm going to work on not being a fat ass. And this is helpful to me in order to do it. Plus, it's just fun because I like to develop stuff. But as we go on, you can kind of envision how we might have another ring that's calories burned. And you can see then the difference between your goal, the amount of burned, and the amount that you've intake. And then, being able to maybe click on a button and actually go to an app and then see your weight. And then maybe that's where you can actually see the actual days and see some actual information within the Watch app of a little graph or something that shows the interplay between burned, eaten, and weight. All of that is not necessary, but it's fun to develop and fun to learn. So anyway, I'll stop on the Android here right now, and I still need to figure out now how to put two recordings together in the editing software. That should be completely interesting since I've never done any of that. So that was not supposed to go blank. Come back up here. I think I lost most of this. We'll just talk briefly, and I'll put this in the link below. This is the Google page on Wear OS development, or at least the stuff that I've found that's relevant. I've been reading up on the tiles. I've done the YouTube code-alongs in their code lab on the tile development. The one that you see here, there's a YouTube video out there, I think from a guy named Jeremy, and this is basically him recreating that. You can see I did that. But if you use the one that's on the code lab today, that code lab and the code that they provide is not the same code. Now you can find this code, the start and the finish code that tracks with the video. Just have to go hunt for it a little bit on the GitHub. If you search for tiles, Wear OS tiles, There's not a lot out there, but there are a few people that have posted GitHub repositories on tile development. And so I've downloaded or forked most of that so that I can see what others have done with tile development. It's a good way to learn, why, see what other people have done and what you might be able to borrow and learn from what they've done. So anyway, that is going to end it for today. And I appreciate you stopping by. Probably in a few days. I got to get my act together now with editing this and figuring out how to upload it and then create sort of a new how-to. And tons of respect to everyone who's posted videos on YouTube that I've learned from over the years. It's no small little task to do it. So, thanks.